You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and happy War Rapport Wednesday to everyone. Joined by Mike G and C-Dub with the War Rapport. Rough Saturday night, boys.
Yeah, listen, hats off to Penn State. You got to congratulate them on a well-executed game plan. I thought that they made some good adjustments after the first couple drives when it was looking like our defense was going to dominate. And hats off to Sean Clifford, man. He went out there and went 28 for 32, which is a great game by any stretch of the imagination. So they did what they needed to do to win. We did not.
Right. C-Dub, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about Penn State. You have any quick thoughts to kind of put a bow on it?
Yeah, it was a learning opportunity for our coaching staff and the players. The coaches learned a lot about the guys that they had starting for us. And hopefully they get to evaluate, determine who they can depend on. Hopefully it opens up some competition in some position groups. And I think they reevaluate, they get better and make some adjustments moving forward. If we were going to lose a game, this was a good one to lose because there's no strike against us in the conference. So moving ahead, we'll be a better team going into Baton Rouge and actually starting this Saturday.
There we go. There we go. All right, so looking ahead to this Saturday, Georgia State comes into town. First time Auburn has ever played Georgia State. Georgia State, a very young program relatively. So we're going to see a lot of firsts possibly on Saturday as far as that matchup goes. But a few guys that I think are worth highlighting going into this. Sam Pickney sounds like he's one of their more impressive players. Harsin mentioned him by name in his Monday presser. But I have him as a matchup. Sam Pickney, the wide receiver, against Nehemiah Pritchett. Normally, I kind of match their top receiver with Roger McCreary, but much like we saw this past Saturday against Penn State, regardless of who Roger McCreary is on, I feel like he is going to get the better end of that matchup. Jahan Dotson did a lot against the Tigers Saturday, but it wasn't against McCreary. It was usually when he was being covered by Nehemiah Pritchett. So Pickney, 6'4", 210. He's seen as possibly the best wide receiver in the Sun Belt from multiple sources that I've seen say that. He's a Blitnikoff watch list type guy. So I think, more reps for Nehemiah Pritchett, especially if they want to kind of continue to work on that zone defense that we kind of saw be pretty inconsistent Saturday night.
Yeah, Pritchett didn't have a good game Saturday. He didn't have a good game. So there's lots on tape for him to work on kind of going into this one if he's going to continue, in that starting role. He had some trouble kind of getting his head turned around and getting his hips flipped, and it was there were some teachable moments from that game where again on the PI call that he got, if he gets his head around and he looks for the ball, it's 3rd and 12 from the Penn State 1, right? But he did not. So they got the PI, and the end result of that play was they burned another 90 seconds off the clock before we got the ball back. So he's got some work to do. I think the secondary in general is a little embattled right now. McCreary had a decent game, but if Pritchett is going to match up against their best receiver, I've got some worries. So I'll be looking to see. This is a good chance for him to clean some things up, clean his technique up, and it only gets tougher from here, man. After this, he's going to go up against some really good wide receivers in SEC play. So he's got to get it. He's got to get it cleaned up.
Sure. And you mentioned the defensive backfield being pretty inconsistent and struggling at times against Penn State. C-Dub, would love your thoughts on this next matchup that I have. Georgia State runs a lot of 2 tight end sets. So I have just a Georgia State offense running 2 tight end sets versus Smoke Monday. And I mean, we saw Smoke Monday and the rest of the interior defensive line or the defensive backfield kind of battle with leaving tight ends wide open Saturday night. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that was a surprise much to the Auburn defense. They wasn't expecting the tight ends to be featured. All the rage was about Dotson and what he can do. And he was as good as advertised. Don't get me wrong, but a surprise and a wrinkle in Penn State's game plan was the use of tight ends.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Smoke Monday, as good as he is, one of the things that the knock against him is his ability to play in coverage and make the appropriate reads coverage-wise. He loves to play downfield and attack. And it's an opportunity for a defense to kind of outflank him and take advantage of that by using a tight end. And I think for these guys, as talented as they are, we have to remember they're learning a new system. They're playing a system that causes them to basically read more so than attack. And so instinctively, if you're someone like Smoke, you have to understand your assignments. You have to be kind of a quarterback back there. Make sure guys understand what they're supposed to be doing prior to the snap and read accordingly. And this will be a great opportunity for him to kind of look at the film as to what he did against Penn State, because as you mentioned, they do like to run 2 tight end sets, and use that as practice moving forward for how to read the offense before the snap is ever made and then attack accordingly. And that'll help him in coverage, I think, moving forward. And again, there's some good tape on him, how he defended Penn State. He has to learn it this week because other coordinators in the SEC are going to come right at him. So this is something that he needs to learn immediately and improve on.
Yeah. Is that something they can do mid-season, you think, Mike G, or is that something that, it's entrenched in this scheme and, their concept of the scheme? How quick can that be cleaned up?
It can't be cleaned up mid-season. And defense tends to be that way in general.
You say it can or it cannot?
It can be cleaned up mid-season, right? So what we saw last week primarily was about scheme. We kind of left our DBs on an island, not being able to generate a pass rush. I think we blitzed only like 9 or 10 times during that game when all the advanced metrics said heat Clifford up, get in the backfield, cause havoc. To give fans a concept of what it's like as a defensive back trying to stay on a receiver, man, it's like 3 or 4 seconds at best. Yeah. Right. Like, because the better quarterbacks have the ball out of their hands in under 2.5 seconds. So if you've got to defend a guy for 4 seconds, that's a lifetime in college football. And that's where these guys found themselves because of the pass rush issues that we had on Saturday. So I think it can be cleaned up midseason. If these coaches are being honest, when they looked at the tape, they saw a lot that was left to be desired in terms of scheme that was left on the field. So, again, you got one more tune-up game versus Georgia State to kind of figure it out. Now, we weren't having an issue. Despite the pass rush issues, we still had 11 tackles for a loss on Saturday. Yeah. So they found their way to the backfield. It just did not translate to pressure on the quarterback. We sat back in zone. Again, we played the zone scheme against Clifford, and he kind of carved us up. So when you face better quarterbacks, they'll carve a zone up like it's Thanksgiving turkey. Sure. You can't do that. So I expect, because the problems are scheme related and not talent related primarily, it can be cleaned up. Scheme can always be cleaned up.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hey, today's show brought to you by our friends at betonline.ag. It's the #1 place for all of your pro and college sport action this season. You get 100% welcome bonus on that deposit. All you have to do is go to betonline.ag, and when you make that deposit, use promo code LOCKEDON. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Moving forward, there's one more matchup I want to kind of spend a second on, and then I want to get your thoughts on a specific player, guys. But Darren Granger is Georgia State's quarterback. And it's interesting. They just recently made a quarterback change. They had this guy that started all 10 games for them last year, started the season this year, and they just decided to make a change. It sounds like he just wasn't getting it done. Some of it his fault, some of it other parts of the offense. But they're bringing this Granger kid. He's a dual threat guy. So, you've heard this before. Auburn facing another dual threat quarterback. But I have Darren Granger versus Chandler Wooten, which I think is a fun matchup. We haven't been able to say his name during this segment this season. But Granger ran it 16 times against Charlotte last week, so they're going to have him as a part of the game plan. But I love being able to put Chandler Wooten in this because he's a captain. We haven't really been able to say his name as much, but he's going to have to fill in. Jacoby McLean's going to miss the first half due to the controversial targeting call that happened against Penn State. And then Owen Papo, I'd be shocked if he played Saturday. Somebody in the Locked On Auburn Discord was talking about how they saw him on campus with a boot. But, it sounds like all reports are good. I'm sure that's just part of the healing process. But I'm excited to see Chandler Wooten lead this defense.
Yeah, same here. And he was voted captain. An amazing story. He sat out last year. And it's set up for him to actually step in and be the leader that Coach Harsin has raved about him actually being. And it's a great matchup because this Granger kid can, as a matter of fact, you mentioned the wide receiver matchup previously. I think the most damage this quarterback is going to make or can make this upcoming Saturday is with his legs more so than his arm. Yeah. I'm more so worried about him getting out of the pocket and doing some things running wise to actually stretch our defense. So I expect we continue to play a lot of zone. I expect that Mason would expect his linebackers to be reading the quarterback, staying in position, being fundamentally sound, staying in your position, and just seeing what he does. And so instead of playing man and with our backs to the quarterback, they're going to keep their eyes on him. And I think that's a good opportunity for Wooten to show what he can do playing in space and making plays against his quarterback. I like Wooten. I think this is an opportunity for him to really show that he's a guy that they can depend on, seeing as though they're temporarily shorthanded.
Sure. Absolutely. Mike G, do you have any thoughts on that matchup, or you want to move on to something else?
Yeah, listen, Wooten how are they going to use him? So just like we said in the last kind of a bit, what's the skill? What position is this scheme Saturday going to put Wooten in? So far through the season, he's got 12 tackles. In terms of pass pressure, since we're talking about him versus the quarterback, he's got 0 hurries, 0 hits, 0 sacks on the season.
Hasn't been used that way.
Right. Yeah. So I'm wondering what is, I think a lot of fans are like, what is the plan for these players?
Yeah.
I think Wooten has got a tremendous amount of talent, but we've got to put him in good positions to make plays. So that's primarily what I'm going to be watching. I think he's capable.
Sure.
But this is your last chance to try to figure it out before SEC play, before you got to go to a place you haven't won in 20 years. Mm-hmm. So he should be able to make plays on Saturday, I think, against this team. They've got to kind of get their mind right and get their swagger back a little bit this Saturday. So I expect Wooten to be a big part of that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, Mike G, I want to give you a second here. I want these next few minutes to be about the phenom, Jarquez Hunter. And boy, I know this is your boy. What do you like so far? I said on the pod yesterday, right? It seems like every 5 or 6, I love how excited you are if you're watching on YouTube. But every 5 or 6 touches this guy gets, like something just crazy happens. He has a historically long run, or he hurdles a dude in Saquon Barkley's house. All kinds of things are happening whenever this guy gets the football. It sounds like he's living up to your expectations.
Yeah. Again, if you're watching me for the first time, or the Rapport, or Zac Blackerby, in the preseason, before he'd ever taken a snap, I said this guy might finish as one of the best running backs in Auburn history. I specifically said top 3.
I thought you were great.
Yeah, some people said, given the backs that have come through Auburn, which ones do you think he's going to beat? We got Bo Jackson. We've got Cadillac, we've got Ronnie, we've got Kerryon Johnson, Trey Mason probably had one of the most underrated, seasons in Auburn history. And because of Tank's presence,
Ben Tate.
Right. Ben Tate. Yep. How was he going to get there, with sharing snaps with Tank? And I think it's clear, after 3 weeks of the season, we're going to have to lean on the run game unless significant changes in our pass game is made. Yeah. Now, we've shown incredible balance. I thought that we showed balance to a detriment on Saturday because we were 1 for 10 on passes, 20 yards or more against Penn State. I think you cut, at the very least, you cut those throws in half. You take 5 of those touches and you give them all to Jarquez. Averaging 7 yards a carry, you cannot tell me that wouldn't have changed the game. It would have changed the whole complexity of the game. We threw a lot of deep balls that had no chance of being caught. And then we ended up, turning the ball over in terms of downs or punting or giving it back to Penn State. So if you can control the ground, you can control the clock. And when you go on the road in the SEC, running the ball can take the life out of the opposing team. We've got 2 running backs that can really get it done. No disrespect to Sean Shivers, but this number 2 job is Jarquez's. It has to be. He hurdled a guy. He hurdled a whole man. Like and
it looks so easy. Like didn't even slow down.
Zac, he got loose on the sideline. He saw a defender coming, and he said, I could go left, I could go right, I could maybe handle a spin. Yeah, you know what? I'll just go over. Right?
Over him,
yeah. And he ran for another 15 yards after that. This kid has got otherworldly talent. We will be doing ourselves a disservice as an offense to not get him more touches. I think he's earned it. He's taking care of the football when they've handed it to him. He has not fumbled. He's got some work to do in pass protection. This is something that will keep him off the field. He graded out poorly in terms of pass pro, but he's got to learn how to pick up the blocks and recognize the blitz. And I think the sky's the limit for him. We could have 2,000-yard rushers this year. We could have 2,000-yard rushers this year. Auburn, little fact about Auburn, we are number 1 in the nation in yards per carry right now, 7.8 yards per carry. Jarquez himself so far is averaging 12 yards a carry.
Do you know what his average is without the 94-yarder?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I can't do that math that quickly.
Sure. I would love to know what it is. I'm still impressive.
Yeah, I mean, listen, against Penn State, again, he was averaging 7 yards a rush, against a top 10 team. So I would guess, if I had to best guess, I would say without that 94-yarder, he's still averaging better than 5 or 6 yards a carry, which is phenomenal, especially for
I would guess that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, the identity, I think the biggest question we had as fans coming into this season was, what kind of offensive identity is Auburn going to have post Gus Malzahn? Right. We've seen Bogo under center. They're challenging receivers and DBs and defenses deep. We're not hitting those passes at a high clip now. And now it's just time to lean into your run game, man. Do what you do. Our offensive line, this is their strength. This is what they're good at, man. Run blocking is where they're good. Yeah. And we got to lean into that. Running Jarquez Hunter more is a must in my book. And prior to previous years, Zac, I'll end with this. We have a chance to be dynamic and not run our best player on offense into the ground. Great. Which is Tank. That's going to be so important. Tank can still get his touches and affect the game and stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I see no downside to Jarquez, to Tank and Jarquez being 1A, 1B.
See that, I know on the War Report, you guys talk a lot about the running back situation. What are your thoughts with Hunter and what the balance should be regarding workload moving forward?
I think he should definitely get more carries. He's earned it. He's earned it. He's done everything the coaching staff has asked him to do and then some. It could have been drawn up better for him coming in as a freshman. And to Mike G's point, I mean, he is a true freshman. So rarely do you see a kid come in and learn pass pro from the jump. They're usually an amazing athlete, an amazing runner with the ball in their hands. But it takes time for them to pick up on pass pro. And I think that will come with time. That will come with more reps. I think he will improve and definitely be a guy who the coaches could have on the field at any given time. But I definitely think he should shoulder the load. And to Mike G's point, the beauty of it is that for us to be dependent upon the run game this year, Tank doesn't have to get at least 20 carries a game now. He can share that workload with other guys who is just as powerful, just as tough, who can run between the tackles, who can do all the things that Tank can pretty much do, which is saying a lot considering his Tank. Sure. And so we talk about identity, and one of the things that I've heard Bobo, I've even heard Harsin talk about is balance. And Mike mentioned it to our detriment. We were very balanced. And I think at some point you have to prioritize your identity over balance, right? If it's working, if we're able to run the ball, yeah. Right? And the beauty of being balanced though, Zac, sometimes it's not always 50-50. It's the ability to make the defenders get in their head because they're not sure what's coming, the run or pass.
I like that.
And I felt like we missed a prime opportunity when we were running the ball to really introduce play action and give Bo the easier throws as opposed to 10 throws down the field, 20 yards or more. I felt like slipping a tight end out into the flat or doing things with creatively with screens, giving Bo the easy throws, taking advantage of Penn State, who were just playing downhill. They were just reading run and being aggressive. We didn't take advantage of that. And I think a balanced offense does it, but it starts with solidifying the run game. And when they think we're running, then we hit them with play action and make them pay. To me, that's a balanced offense and is rooted in the identity, which is a downhill power attack.
Zach, I just want to add, take away the 94-yard. I did some math while you guys were doing that.
I wonder what you're doing over there.
Yeah, take away the 94-yarder. He's averaging 9 yards per carry.
Yeah, that's still great.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's real. It's so those numbers aren't really. It's not crazy. To C's point about the play action, I disagree just a little bit because right now, Saturday night, whoever is number 17 on Penn State's defense was beating Troxel like he stole something last Saturday night, and he was in the backfield affecting plays every other play. So while our offensive line had a pretty good game, Austin Troxel did not. Sure. I mean, he was getting whooped. So they're going to have to solve that problem. You know, again, if you're going to do play action, Bo had the ball out of his hands pretty quickly when kept clean, about 2 seconds flat. He was throwing the ball, and still that was necessary because defenders were beating Troxel.
I still expected, this coaching staff to see stuff like that and then call something where you roll the pocket and move Bo to the outside. And we didn't really see any of that. Yeah. So it's just little stuff like that where I was like, where was that? But real quick, I asked somebody else this on the show earlier this week. I guess it was Charlie 5 yesterday, but would love a quick response from both of y'all. You get 40 carries. You get 40 carries divided amongst the 3 running backs, assuming Sean Shivers is back. How would you divide those 40 carries up? 20, 15, and 5 has been the most popular response. I had a few listeners text me and DM me since that show went up. But yeah, what are y'all's thoughts on that? I got y'all thinking.
Yeah, I'm waiting on Chandler here. Yeah,
no, I'm waiting on you.
I mean, I could go. I think 15 for Jarquez is a reasonable number.
Okay,
I think it's a necessary number as well too. In terms of Shivers, I think that he's now his role has to be more of a utility player. So you're probably throwing the ball to him. With these 2 running backs that we have, and this is again no disrespect to Sean Shivers, I don't see realistically, unless somebody's hurt, why he garners many carries at all.
Okay.
Right. So if your 5 carries are in garbage time, right?
Let's assume in this exercise it's relevant offense, relevant snaps.
No carries.
What?
Wow. Yeah, no carries.
20 and 20?
Yeah, I think you split them up.
25 and 15?
Yeah, I think you split them up and you keep the ball in your home press.
And what?
I'm gonna give him 5. I'm gonna give him 5. I think that's the popular. I'm gonna do 20, 15, and 5.
Well, let me ask you this: in against a serious opponent, how many carries does your 3rd string running back usually get?
But Auburn's 3rd string running back is better than other people's 3rd string running back.
I mean, I get that. That's true.
And he's got world-class speed. And I think he's proven to be reliable in the backfield despite people counting time.
I'm not down on Shivers. I'm not. I'm just saying.
What? You just said 0.
Yeah, I don't see a realistic scenario where, again, I'm thinking about it this way. I'm just thinking, hey, if we're talking about him falling behind Jarquez on the depth chart, my 3rd string running back is coming in utility positions. Where we throw the ball to him when we throw the defense off. Shivers is actually excellent in pass protection, right? So there is a reason for him to garner snaps. But I don't. I mean, 5. I mean, I guess I mean, if you want to be, I guess we could give him 5 carries. I just don't see.
You're excited about it, Mike G.
Begrudgingly give him 5 carries.
Yeah, you're 3rd string running back at that point, right? I don't. I mean, how often do these? I mean, the last time we had 3 really killer running backs, 1 transferred, right? Ronnie Brown, Cadillac, and Brandon Jacobs all played in the same backfield at one point. Right. Brandon saw the writing on the wall and he transferred because he wanted to play. It worked out for him. But I mean, that's why I'm trying to say I'm not down on Shivers. I just think that's a really crowded backfield right now. And if we're in competitive games, from a coaching standpoint, how do you work Shivers in? Where do his 5 snaps come?
I think
he's a change.
Yeah,
he's a change of pace back, and that warrants you 5 snaps off bat there. Yeah,
well, we're talking carries. Do you still feel the same about carries in that situation?
Yeah, carries. When I say snaps, I mean 5 carries. 5 carries for sure. I mean, that's what a change of pace back would normally do in a game like that.
I think they should throw the ball to Shivers, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd rather throw it to Hunter than Shivers.
Listen, it's so hard. There are so many reasons to love Jarquez Hunter touching the ball as many times as possible.
Sure.
But for the sake of this discussion, I'm just saying, there's no game plan that exists where you're focusing on getting Sean Shivers the ball at this moment.
I should have asked that question earlier in the show. Hey, today's show brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. They've got a limited time flavor this week. I just got some in the mail. Very excited to try them out. Cookie dough chunk. So be sure to check that out at built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Also, today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love Prize Picks. I know you will too. And I highly recommend you head over. Don't hesitate. Go to prizepicks.com. You can download their free app. Check it all out. If you know college football, Prize Picks is where you need to be. Also, where you need to be is on the War Rapport's YouTube page. Gentlemen, what are folks missing out on if they are not subscribed to you guys?
Oh, man, listen, last night we did our watch the film, our WTF Penn State. So we went over, we watched every play of that game.
Did it hurt?
It did hurt. It did hurt. It's still the wound's still kind of fresh, but we got to talk about the good as well as the bad. That's what our watch the film is for, because we can talk and just kind of assume, but it's something different when we sit down and all watch the same thing together, right? So I'm really proud that we'll be able to bring that to our insiders. So check that out over on YouTube. We're dropping content essentially 6-7 days a week right now. So we've got a game day experience. Zach, you've joined us for that. And then we have a post-game experience that is the immediate in the aftermath. Let's come together as a community and talk about what we just saw. Then we're back at you Sunday with our weekend tailgate. The world just keeps spinning over at the War Report. You can check us out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're at. That's what the War Report is.
Awesome. C-Dub, would love your thoughts now. What do you expect from this team moving forward? Do you think things will change based on what we saw from game plan on offense and defense? Do you think it's just going to come together a little bit more? Do you think there's still going to be struggles in certain areas like we saw Saturday night? Just would love your thoughts. What does this team need to do over the next few weeks to kind of solidify where they need to be this season?
They have to figure out how to generate some pressure without relying on the front four. I think that's something that we will probably see more of in the coming weeks. Yes. Derek Mason not just allowing guys to just sit back, but there will be some more attacking. I think the zone defense is here. We're going to be playing zone. I think that's what Mason wants to hang his hat on. So that's going to be an adjustment that our guys in the secondary as well as linebackers are just going to have to get acclimated to and get comfortable with. And there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some coverage busts. We're going to have to just go ahead and suck it up and accept it. But I just don't see us going back to the old Kevin Steele days where everyone had a guy and he was on his hip, right? So I think those are kind of the things I expect defensively. Offensively, I think we do rely more on the run game moving forward, and hopefully we can build a competent passing game where Bo is not being asked to make these long plays down the field, given what we saw in Penn State. Hopefully we can do some play action, some things to get guys open. He can take advantage of those shots, but I'm looking to them basically putting together a game plan that takes advantage of Bo Nix's strengths as opposed to exposing his weaknesses. Sure. Bo struggled throwing the deep ball against Penn State, and I think there are better throws for him to make And I hope that the coaching staff goes back, watches the film, and puts together a game plan that allows him to thrive, making better, easier passes for him.
Mike G, what do you think this team needs to do moving forward?
The changes are on the way after Saturday, certainly. The coaches have to take a lot of responsibility for what we saw Saturday night. Mm-hmm. You know, the talent was there. The game plan, I don't think wasn't. I don't think it was good. I think they didn't do a good job of adjustments. The defense, I mean, the bright spot of this team was run defense. We currently have the best run defense in the country. Arguably, Wisconsin is ahead of us statistically, but they've only played 2 games and we played 3. So they're allowing nothing on the ground. Teams are going to find a hard time running on this defense, man. They're swarming to the ball, which is good. If we can find a way to generate a pass rush, it'll help our DBs out quite a bit. I don't think zone is it. Playing zone is not it. But we'll see what kind of defensive changes they make. Now, offensively, I think it's clear what we are in terms of run defense and run offense. Solid, right? In terms of the pass game, I was on the Monday presser with Coach, and I just asked him about the vertical passing game. 1 to 20 beyond 20 yards. When you look at the difference between how Penn State managed Clifford and we managed Bo, they didn't let him throw the ball down the field that much. They kept a vast majority of his throws behind the line of scrimmage, believe it or not, or 5 yards or less was almost all of his throws.
Throws.
Yeah, I mean, they just makeable throws. Now, I think we had to manage Bo the same way. I'm not sure we've had the best wide receivers on the field either.
Yeah.
Shedrick Jackson, God bless his heart, had a rough game Saturday. I expect to see changes there. We threw the ball at him like he was a number 1 wideout. And he tripped over his own feet, and he didn't win jump ball scenarios, and I just didn't get it. Now, some of those throws weren't great, but there were some throws that were on target that Bo made that, again, would have changed the complexion of the drive that ended in a punt. He's got to be out there to make those plays. I think that Kobe Hudson proved that he's a playmaker.
Natural wide receiver.
Yeah, despite the fumble, which I don't put on Kobe, I put on the coaches. That play call was just ridiculous, right? Coming out of the half, run the ball.
Not the play call, but it's an unfortunate thing that happened for sure.
Yeah, and then he's learned his lesson. I like what he said on social media after, like, he took responsibility for it, which was really good. But
he didn't do that either, but he did it.
He did it. So looking at the wide receiver rotations, Harsin said that you're always reassessing. He gave us a coach speak answer on the wide receivers, but I expect to see some different wide receiver rotations out there, definitely. And then ultimately, based on what we saw, because there were Zach, I'll end by just saying,
sure,
there were 3 phases to my emotional state about Bo. My initial reaction was Bo didn't have that bad of a game. Just felt like, hey, it wasn't perfect. His deep ball was bad, but he played well enough for us to win, kind of. Right. And then the next day, I started looking at some of the statistics. I was like, it was a little worse than I thought. And then we watched the film, and it's clear that his decision making is still not where it needs to be in terms of reading which throw to make. So there were throws that he made. He took the hardest throw on a few plays that if he takes the easiest throw, it's a touchdown or a huge play. Right. There were 2 to Kobe Hudson that stood out. That should have gone to Hudson that stood out, where he took the hard throw to Robertson. Robertson got flipped. Right. And Hudson was out there killing his man all night. Bo didn't see him. Right. So again, against top tier competition, you can't miss that. He seemed locked in on certain receivers. Harsin tried to sell to us that there were 5 options off that 4th and 2 play. 5. But when you watch the film, it was clear Bo was locked in on only 1.
Right.
There was a play to be made. Tank over the middle
thing too. When he was asked about that, he said that there were options to both sides of the field, but he wanted to go with the slant.
Yeah, it was absolutely.
Excuse me.
It was absolutely the lowest percentage play they could have made. That is such a low percentage throw in that situation from the 2, especially when you have backs who are averaging well over 5 yards a carry. I would have handed that thing to Tank and Jarquez and just trusted them to beat a man for 2 yards and get in the end zone.
Tank was averaging 2 yards after contact in that game. That's all you needed.
That's all you needed, right? You know, Jarquez, same thing. I would have trusted him to win the matchup. Just give the ball to the
Jarquez.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know you like Jarquez Hunter. Hey guys, thank you so much for your time. I love War Rapport Wednesday, and folks listening to Locked On Auburn consistently, I get texts and comments all the time that they love War Rapport Wednesday. Where can people go if they don't know where to find all of y'all's content?
Caesar, did you? Well, you can find us on YouTube. We are the War Rapport on Instagram, TikTok, wherever you do your social media. You can find the War Rapport. We're putting out a lot of content, so go check us out on YouTube. Become an insider and get access to some of the special stuff we're doing over there.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see y'all next week. But tomorrow I'll be joined by Ben Moore. He covers Georgia State for Auburn, for 247 Sports. So they'll have a lot of information about this team that Auburn's playing on Saturday. Until then, we'll see you right here on Locked On Auburn.